Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Chelsea, and welcome to
Nick and Chelsea's Gen Excellent Adventure, where we chronicle 50-something parents of a 5-year-old as we move from the USA to the UAE.
You can also follow our journey on our Instagram page, Nick Chels Gen Excellent Adventure, or type in the name of this podcast. If you have any questions or subjects you'd like us to address, go ahead and send them through our Instagram page.
So welcome to the, quote, how is this our life right now, unquote, episode.
Or, why is Dubai amazing at defense, but our nervous systems are not?
Or, time change and some guaranteed housing beats all alternatives.
Okay, so we could go on, but let's start with what hopefully everybody already knows. The U.S. and Israel attacked Iran, and then the Iran attacked the Gulf states. We won't go into our opinions or any of that. Those are just the basic facts.
So we are currently coming to you from Spain, or more specifically, our balcony.
Our balcony.
You might be able to hear the birds and the ambient sounds a little bit.
Construction, but not like Dubai.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the third location we've been to since we left the UAE. It's been about 3 weeks, and now, if spring break had gone as normal, it would have been only one country.
You might remember that we were going to go to Taiwan.
Yeah. But now, I guess we're getting more adventuring in this way.
That's right, 3 countries. Good for us. So, spring break, we'll just go into the basics of kind of what went down about 3 weeks to a month ago.
So the war begins, and this is about 2 weeks before spring break at your school was scheduled to begin.
Right. So spring break is 2 weeks. It was the last 2 weeks of March. It was coinciding with the end of Ramadan. And because what happened, and the UAE was suddenly having to deal with missile threats and drones and so forth, they decided to move spring break up by a week.
Yeah, so we ended up having, a week of distance learning before spring break began a little early, which of course threw everybody's schedule into quite a tizzy. Now, granted, I think there were differing reactions to that. I think there were people who were very put out by the fact that their travel plans were getting all messed up by the scheduling change.
Yeah.
And then there were people, I would say we're more in this category, who were like, that's not our priority at the moment.
Yeah. So my immediate reaction was, oh no, but our flights, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, 3 hours later, no, that was the right move. Good job, UAE.
Mm-hmm. Because, let's just kind of set the scene a little bit. So what was it like, living there in Dubai when this all started to break out?
Shocking. It was shocking. It was a big surprise and a little frightening. I think if you've seen any of the posts that we've put up about this, you've seen me repost people who live there who are like, the UAE is handling this so well, and I'm not worried at all. And I would say the UAE was handling it incredibly well. Their defense system's amazing. Like, really, the amount of drones and missiles that country has dealt with, and how few injuries and etc. there have been is so impressive. I post the daily updates that they post. However,
I mean, the fact is that we were hearing the explosions.
Yes.
Yeah, we would hear, big bangs in the sky. We'd hear other sorts of bangs. It got to the point where I'm pretty sure that I was able to differentiate the sound of an intercept versus the sound of something actually impacting the ground.
Yeah, very little actually impacted the ground, though. So, I mean, it really was mostly intercepts, and that's what they would make sure we all knew, right? So, like, everybody was making sure that, I would say that Dubai, the UAE, was making sure that everybody was aware that these were successful interceptions, but unfortunately, sometimes there's some residual impact from that.
But so we had that in the background, though. We're hearing the explosions.
Yeah.
We are getting those really loud, screechy alerts on our phones telling us that it's time to go take shelter.
Right.
Because there was a missile threat.
Yeah, and they all say don't be near windows, so move away from the windows. So our kid sleeps in a room with a queen bed, and it's really close to the windows. And the windows are huge in Dubai. Like, every place has huge windows, like floor to ceiling.
Basically, his whole wall is window.
Yeah.
And so he would have been sleeping. There was no way to get away from it in his room.
No.
So we really changed our sleeping arrangements in our apartment.
Yeah, so our room is much bigger, so we moved the bed closer to a wall, not on the window. I had tea with me in bed. I put like pillows on one end. I put myself in the middle, and I put him on the other end. Now, I think by now we would have gone back to normal. A lot of people have gone back to normal sleeping arrangements, but that's kind of where we were comfortable at the time.
Meanwhile, I'm on the couch.
Yeah, poor Nick. He's on the couch. And, but our couch is actually relatively good for sleeping if you have to sleep on a couch.
It's more comfortable for sleeping than it is for sitting.
Yes, so true.
I mean, it's interesting that way.
Anyway, so none of us were getting enough sleep with this weird setup. And then when we had to go, like if there was an actual alert and they say move away from the windows, we were going into the bathroom, which has no windows.
Yeah,
but it does have a lot of glass.
But it's the only room in our entire apartment that is free of the windows.
Yeah.
And the glass is in there, but at least it's not glass to the outside.
Right, exactly. And then I had decided, and one time we like sheltered in the hallway, which has no windows and you can close all the doors. And I was like, okay, so maybe in the future we'll do that.
Well, and at the beginning, we were getting these alerts, but we weren't getting the, danger's gone alerts.
Right.
So, like, that very first one we got, you and T spent, like, hours in the bathroom.
Yeah, first few, because what happened was this was not something that the UAE had planned on. So they literally had to create this system as they went. Mm-hmm. So it got substantially better as time went on. Like they improved the alert system, they improved the system that says, okay, you no longer need to shelter in place. But yeah, I was like, texting people, how long do we stay here? Looking it up online. It was challenging.
And so like that first one came shortly after we put T to bed.
Yeah.
And so we had to get him up.
Yeah.
Bring him into the bathroom and basically try to get him to sleep on the bathroom bath mat.
Yeah.
Because that's, it's very hard floors. That was the only thing we had.
Yeah.
And, he needed to try to get some sleep, but we weren't going to take him back into his room.
Yep. And so we just kind of went with that for the week. I would say we got a little bit better, but never stopped being jumpy about it. Mm-hmm. And then out of friend's advice, we packed go bags.
Yeah.
And so we each had a bag and we each had a backpack.
The thing is that we packed those bags not knowing where we were going.
Right.
So you had to kind of pack, you had to pack light, but you also had to pack in order to be in different kinds of environments.
Right, a little warm, a little cool.
Like, were we going to be going somewhere warm? You had to have something for that situation. Were we going to go somewhere where it was cold? We had to have something for that situation. So that also complicated, trying to pack one bag. At first, because we didn't know if we'd have to evacuate like right away.
Right.
We didn't want T to have his own suitcase.
Oh, right.
So I, jammed his stuff into my backpack, into my suitcase too. So we both had like 3 days worth of clothes in there.
Yeah, thankfully that changed.
Yeah.
And then while managing kind of our emotions and all these like little logistical things, I was working from home.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of a distracted working.
Well,
Very distracted working.
And we were also doing, remote learning from home too.
Yeah,
and so,
which you were doing. Nick was really handling that.
I mean, that's one of the times where it's like, oh, thank goodness I don't have a job right now.
Yeah, actually, the last 3 weeks, we've never been more grateful that Nick doesn't have a job.
Yeah, I mean, among other things, we've seen people who have not been able to leave even though they wanted to because all members of the family weren't in the same situation. And they might have had a partner who had a job that they could not have left the country for.
Yeah. Now, the bummer is Nick was about to start working and he'd started networking with some people from his improv, and it looked like maybe he could get some extra work that way too. And we're like, oh my gosh, things are moving. And then boom, literal boom.
But in the meantime, you're looking for some assistance from the U.S. State Department and all this.
Right.
But at the beginning, I mean, they clearly were pretty much in disarray themselves too.
Yeah, and I think we should absolutely distinguish between the top of the State Department and the rank and file people of whom we know some of in the world. Those people, the rank and file, are amazing, and were unaware that this was going to happen, and didn't know about the blowback that would come from people living abroad. Basically, the State Department did not plan on evacuating anybody aside from, I think, Iran, Israel, and Lebanon.
But they sent out that alert very early that their recommendation was for Americans to leave the UAE.
Yes.
But then they also was like, but we have no evacuation flights it's up to
Yes.
you to find your own way
It was
out.
like, get a commercial flight. They are limited. Or you can travel to Oman or Saudi Arabia, but we hear it can
by
be
land,
congested by
by
land.
So, whether you got a car or some other way of getting there, we would not have been able to do that because we had a rental car.
Yeah.
And you can't get into
Yeah.
Oman in particular with a rental car.
Right. Now, as time went on, and I'm on a WhatsApp for American women in Dubai, and so there's a lot of information that comes that way. So they started like different services, like companies were doing, commercial buses to Oman and so forth.
Yeah, but as far as the commercial flights, though, I mean, they told you to get commercial flights. They closed the airspace.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, I mean, all flights were grounded. So it's not like you could have, gotten out by commercial flight
Right.
because
Which
there
is
were
why,
none.
which is why people were going to Muscat and to Riyadh. I mean, these things were happening, but it didn't make sense for us.
So we were in a bind. I mean, we were told to leave.
Yeah.
But there was really no way to leave.
Oh, and we wanted to. So, there's lots of people who didn't want to.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. I don't know if it's the majority. I have no idea on the data. But many, many people, in fact, most of my coworkers, like within my department, they didn't leave. Some might have wanted to, but they didn't for various reasons, or they really, truly were comfortable. Some of them are still considering.
Yeah. I mean, we know that we're very fortunate that we had the option to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
We were in a position, whether it's our job situations, whether it's the kind of resources we had available, whether it was kind of support
Yeah.
systems that we have that could aid us in this whole thing,
Yeah.
allowed us to have the option to leave without feeling like we were putting ourselves in a untenable situation.
Right, it's true. We really, I think we were both of us were like, okay, the anxiety that's coming with this is too much, and it's not helping with our child who needs to feel stable, and we don't have another child for him to kind of like comfort with. We were that week going over to our friend's house, which wasn't that far away. We visited with some neighbors. We were staying in the neighborhood, and that was nice.
Yeah, mind you, the recommendation was not to go.
Yeah.
Not to leave your indoor place. I mean,
Yeah.
we were sort of, I wouldn't say violating anything, but
No.
but at that stage,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of people out and about. I remember
Yeah.
one time I just had to go for a walk
Yeah,
and with tea,
yeah,
and we went to the cat park,
yeah.
and there was maybe 2 other people there.
Yeah, granted, it was also Ramadan, and that was already like low levels of people in the middle of the day. But not everybody was leaving. It's definitely more, I would say it's definitely, they've loosened those recommendations over time. So I think they feel like we're managing this. You can still go about your day, but please follow the alerts and shelter in place when they come. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, back to the State Department.
Yeah, so we're in a situation where we're being told we should leave, but there's no avenue for leaving.
Yeah.
So you really got on the horn.
I really did. I was so annoyed by that. So I went all over my social media. I talked to my family on our group chat, and I was like, please, 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 call your reps, call your reps, call your reps. We need them to be organizing evacuation flights. And you know what? That worked. So I'm going to do a shout out to some very specific ones because that my family and friends were in touch with. Senator Cantwell
From Washington.
Senator Murray from Washington, in Kansas City, Emmanuel Cleaver II, Rick Larson in Washington.
From my old stomping grounds in Everett.
Yes, and then Kim Schreier in Washington. So all the aides from these people were responding, and many of them were reaching out to us directly. Like they had our emails, they reached out to us directly and said, here, can you give us the information that we need so we can get you on a flight? So it really was actually, I'm so impressed with how fast these people responded. I want to say Senator Cantwell heard from so many people on our behalf that I was like, if we end up flying into Seattle, she should be meeting us at the airport. That's how much she's heard from us.
It would have been a good photo op.
It would have. It was pretty funny. So that worked. And so just for anybody listening, like, know that those calls make a difference. The more they hear from people, the more they take it seriously. And it's even if your reps automatically would take it seriously because you're their constituent, they are passing on that information to other people. And so in this case, to the State Department. So We got called once they finally did start evacuation flights. We got called for them pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's why. Because I was on that WhatsApp chat and plenty of women were like, how come I'm not getting called? I'm like, call your reps. Have people call your reps.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. So anyway, they did eventually start the evacuation flights, but because they had already messaged find your own, find your own, find your own, a lot of people didn't end up on the flights.
Well, and we wouldn't have ended up on the flights because since we were told we were on our own, I mean, one of the first things I did was I went out and got a flight as fast as I could.
Oh yeah, you got one to London.
Yes, and what I figured is that, I don't think this is going. The airspace is closed. This flight is in 2-3 days or whatever. This isn't going to happen, but hopefully we get in line earlier as far as getting a rescheduled flight once things maybe start opening up again.
Nick was strategic. It really reminds me about when we bought our house, and I was like, it was the same year we got married. We got married in the summer, and Nick in the fall was like, we have to buy a house. And I was like, what? We just got married. And you were like, listen, if we don't do this now, we're not going to be able to afford this in 6 months. He was completely right. Anyway, this kind of was that same philosophy. You were like, now, so that later we're okay.
Yeah. But anyway, that flight did get canceled, the flight to London.
Yeah.
And there was no simple way to rebook. I mean, at least online.
Yeah.
You're hearing these stories about, trying to call and just being on hold forever, or waiting days. I mean, I got a message that said, we'll respond to your email in 2 to 3 business days. And then you found out through your network about this particular, they had a desk at an actual Emirates Airline store.
Yeah.
At a mall down in Jumeirah.
Yeah. So this is where the WhatsApp chat can be overwhelming. It's constant, but it also can be very helpful because people know things like that. So we haven't been in Dubai to know things like that, right? So basically a day or two after it got canceled, you went down to that desk.
Yeah, because you were told that you could go to this Emirates store and get yourself rebooked in person.
Yep.
Now you had also been told to expect endless lines.
Yeah, because I guess the day before you went, there were endless lines.
But so I went out and this was probably the most nerve-wracking couple, time for me during this whole time in Dubai, is having to drive myself a half hour to the Emirates store.
Yep.
Which, I was on edge the whole time.
It was the first time we'd been outside of the neighborhood.
The first time really venturing out at all.
And in a car.
And the expecting also, I know I took food and water and
right,
and,
that you're going to be in a huge long line.
When I'm going to have to make sure I empty my bladder. I don't want to get out of line because I have to go to the bathroom. All this stuff, and I take that down there expecting, how am I going to find parking at this place?
Yeah.
But I pull up, and lo and behold, wait a second, there's no line to get into the parking lot. I pull in, find a parking spot easily in the underground parking, head on upstairs to the thing, and there was a line. There was a line, but it was moving along pretty well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like an endless line. I mean, I didn't feel like I was at Disneyland or anything like that in terms of the length of the line. And they also had they had employees working the line. They were going through talking to people, and the people who had simpler requests, they would just, fill it for you in line.
Yeah.
And when they got to me, I had a very simple request. I mean, we had our tickets to London had been canceled, and my request was basically get us on the next available flight to London.
Yeah.
Now, the representative came up to me, and when I said London, he goes, "Oh, I'm going to have bad news for you," which, was like, oh boy. But then he said, what would you like? Do you want the earliest ticket to London? Do you want the earliest ticket to the UK, the earliest ticket to Europe? And I was like, well, hey, let's just look up the first thing available to Europe.
Yeah.
And they managed to find us a flight to Manchester.
Which ended up being absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we did not know it at the time, but that was the most ideal destination we could have ended up with given our circumstances.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was, 2 days later after that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was on Thursday, I think, and then we left on Saturday. But in the meantime.
Well, first of all, then I'm driving back.
Oh, right.
And while I'm in the car, halfway back, we get one of the alerts.
I know. I was like messaging Nick, but I also know he like never checks his phone, and like there's Bluetooth, so I just want him to like listen to my message. But I know he's not going to. And I'm like, please tell me you're safe.
And when you're flying in that, or when you're driving in that situation, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, should I be pulling over immediately and ducking into the nearest, business or store I can find, or door front? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I heard something about like just keep driving to your destination.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I mean, I just kept going, and you just kind of keep your eyes
You're
up a
just
little
like,
bit.
Please don't.
By the way, this was like obviously the most relaxed traffic conditions in Dubai I've ever experienced. I'm going down the main road in Jumeirah, which is kind of like Rodeo Drive or something in Los Angeles, and it felt like, oh, this is a really lazy Sunday morning or something like that because of that. I mean, I was not relaxed at all myself, but that's sort of what.
You're like, man, I really wish I could enjoy this.
Yeah,
You're like, I'd like
exactly
to get out and have some coffee. Oh, well, not you, some tea. And I also want to go back a little bit because your experience with Emirates, also, the flight got rebooked from London to Manchester, free of charge.
Yeah, and there was no change fee. There was no, what is the difference in the price between those tickets? And I think they were doing that with everybody.
Yeah, and if you'd been booked to like Madrid or to Austria, it would have been the same.
Yeah.
So that was like, shout out to Emirates because their customer service was exceptional. I mean, if anybody's flown Emirates, you already know this. But they did an amazing job. They're also like the only airline that was consistently going anywhere. So you pretty much, there were some other flights going in and out, but Emirates was really working hard to make them happen at least when they could.
Right,
safely.
Because they were having to do a limited flight schedule when airspace opened up.
Yeah.
I think the airlines that were really dependable were the UAE-based airlines.
Yeah, Etihad too.
Etihad was doing it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it was. We were pretty, so we were in a pretty useful situation there. Now we had tickets again for a flight that was not canceled yet, that Manchester flight.
Yeah.
I was monitoring constantly to see if we're going to get any news about that particular flight being canceled. I'm following the reader board for Dubai International. Yeah. Looking ahead to see our flights getting canceled or anything like that. Following Emirates' Twitter account, getting all the updates. They did have moments where there was canceled airspace between when we booked and when our flight was.
It was off and on.
But they were all pretty short.
Yeah,
they got better about saying we're stopping flights, but it ended up being, instead for a couple of days, it'd be for a couple of hours.
Yeah, they were really doing a good job of trying to get people out if they wanted to get out, and a lot of that was to repatriate people to their. Just tourists.
Right. There were a lot of people who got stuck in Dubai because of this, because they were en route to somewhere else.
Or they were on vacation.
They're on vacation and their flight was a few days after. Our friends came and visited.
Oh my gosh.
And they got out, 4 days ahead of time. So we're really grateful that it didn't start until after they had left.
Yeah, and I remember saying to them, like, I'm glad you're leaving now just in case, but I was thinking in my head, nah. Okay then. Okay, so I want to go back to the evacuation flights because in the process of the London flight getting canceled, you rebooking the other flight, we did actually get invited on some flights. So the first flight we got invited on would have been like, if the London one didn't work out, this is our next option. Yeah. And then unfortunately it got canceled, which we knew could happen because they're flying out of the different airports, and sometimes the airports are shutting down or the airspace is closed. So that's always a risk. So the first flight got canceled. The second one got delayed, and we're getting sometimes we'd get an email that would be very clear, and sometimes it would be like, wait, huh? Is this the right date? But the second one that they invited us on, we were supposed to get there, and this was in Abu Dhabi, at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah. They canceled, So
that meant that, Abu Dhabi is more than an hour away. We were planning on taking a taxi. Yeah. So we were like, okay, we're going to get up at, 2:33 in the morning.
Yeah, so but the first one to Abu Dhabi got delayed, or the second one. it got delayed to the next day.
Yep.
So we got an email, and then we got an email, your flight has been delayed. But we actually, no. I just remembered. We didn't get the first email. We got a, your flight has been delayed email, but we hadn't gotten invited on the first one.
Yeah.
So stuff like this was happening, and we're like, I guess we're on a flight. And then that one got delayed.
Yes.
And so then the second day, it was supposed to go at the same time. It said go be there at 5:30.
Yep.
And then in the middle of the night.
Right. So like we have our alarm set like for 2:30.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So in the middle of the night, I woke up to use the bathroom. We'd set our alarms for 3. I woke up at 2 to use the bathroom. I checked my phone, and at like 1 something, a message had come in, both a voicemail and an email, that your flight has been changed. You need to be at the airport at it's leaving at 3:30.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's 2:15 now, so I don't see that happening. But also it's an hour away, so even if I had gotten it on time, we couldn't have made it in time.
Yeah, that was a really deflating moment.
It was. Oh, was it?
You know, you remember
Okay.
I kind of like really
you
got
lost it a
down
little.
after that
Yeah.
because it's like, how many things are we going to have not work out?
Yeah. So anyway, so that was why we were glad to have these commercial flight backups, hopefully. So there were some evacuation flights, and then they got confusing. And then I learned, okay, so we just leave our phones on at night. I was thinking we'd be safe in the middle of the night, but I understand, people are arranging this from the other side of the world. Okay. So then when we get to when we got to the airport. Oh no, on the way to the airport.
So now we're heading to the airport for our flight to Manchester.
Yes.
So we're saying, okay, we missed the embassy flight. We have our backup with this commercial flight. It's still on.
Yeah.
So we're going on this as long as it's
if it doesn't
go.
fly, we'll get the next evacuation flight. Okay, so then on our way to the airport.
Yeah, so we're in the taxi.
And the guy is super nice. Actually, I love the taxi driver. And then as we're like 5 minutes from the airport, the alerts go off.
Yeah.
And all our phones are beeping, and we're like, oh no, we're in the car.
Well, not just that. We're in the car, and this is going to shut down the airport and airspace again. Are we going to be here?
Yeah.
And be at the airport and then told to leave.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get a flight again.
And it was a red-eye flight, so we were getting there, but we were getting there like 3 to 4 hours early because we'd been told the lines are terrible, just be there really early. Well, it was really interesting. So the alert had gone off. It was still technically in alert mode when we got there. The taxi drops you off outside. Security was making sure, everybody get inside now, get inside now, get inside now.
They were ushering everyone in, telling you to hurry.
Honestly, I felt very safe with that.
And get well into the building.
Yep.
I mean, you weren't
allowed to stop just in the door.
You were going, a good, 20, 30 meters into the building before they stopped ushering you in.
Yeah, and we had to stop because we had hired Marhaba. We'll talk more about that. But we were like, but we can't keep going because we need our Marhaba person. Anyway, it was actually, they handled it in a way where I was like, I'm a little panicked because there's an alert and we're out here, and they're like, we are getting you through. You will not be waiting outside. No, you will be safe. It was helpful. I was like, thank you for telling me what to do and go where. I appreciate this. Yeah. So, and then and then we got there and we had to just wait in this weird area because Marhaba, which is a service.
Yeah. So the Marhaba service is something that, I don't know if it's just Emirates that offers it. I think it's just Emirates.
I don't know.
But it basically, you can hire somebody to help you get through either your arrival process or your departure process.
Right. So when you're arriving, it's like they get you through customs and they just kind of walk you through. They help you find a porter to help carry your stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so we decided to do this mainly because we were told about the lounge.
Yes.
And
yes. A friend of mine from work.
How for a young child in particular, access to the lounge would be really helpful.
Yeah.
You might be able to get some sleep there.
Yeah.
You might be
that did not happen.
You will get food
yes.
there.
Yes.
And
because we're not lounge people, we don't really have a card that gives us lounge access. Mm-hmm. We've never paid for lounge access. We never do red-eye flights. But anyway, it turned out to be very helpful. We wanted to use the service. Normally, they would pick you up at the door, and they would start walking you through everything. And they couldn't pick us up at the door because of the alert, but they did, and we had to wait for them to be available because Marhaba was not allowed to do their job for like a good 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
But once they picked us up, and then you get to basically cut in line.
Yeah.
So we skipped that huge line. It was actually a big line, but it was not for us because we paid really quite a bit of money to do Marhaba, and worth it. Worth it for this one very stressful moment, but it was expensive.
Yeah.
Now, if you book Marhaba ahead of time, not the same day,
Right. Yeah.
it's not nearly as expensive as what we paid. So keep that in mind if you ever want to do our Marhaba. We told our parents to do Marhaba when they came to visit, and they did, and that worked out really well for them.
Yeah.
So Marhaba's worth it, and we did get lounge access, and we hung out there for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And the entire time, I'm just, praying that our flight doesn't get delayed or canceled.
Yeah.
By the way, while this is all going on,
while we're checking in,
get another email from the State Department about, okay, you've been selected for this other flight,
which was the following morning,
which was like 8 hours after the Manchester flight was scheduled, but in Abu Dhabi.
In Abu Dhabi, yeah. So we'd already decided, okay, if this gets canceled, if we go through this and it's canceled, we are hightailing it to Abu Dhabi and we're going to Athens. So one thing about these flights from the State Department is like sometimes it would say have a checked bag, have a carry-on bag, and then it would give you no more information aside from when to be at the airport, what airport to be in, and where to check in. But then there were some that told you where you were going.
Right.
But the first few did not tell us where we were going.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we had bags packed for different situations, because
Right.
there was a very good chance that we were going to be on a flight that wouldn't let us know where it was going to land until after we were in the air.
Right. And even this one that came from about Athens, I was like, well, we've packed for the UK. We've packed for Athens. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the flights did end up going to Athens. And then after we landed, we got another one for Istanbul. So at least one flight went to Istanbul. So they were starting to do them over and over again. Now, I know they were frustrated because people were not taking them, but that is because the initial rollout was so confusing. Yeah. And so people were booking their own flights. And some people chose to stay because they didn't want to leave their families. Our big one was pets.
Yeah.
People didn't want to leave pets. And that is the right thing because there were lots of abandoned pets in this situation.
Yeah, it was a little
really depressing.
Yeah, it was sad to hear some of the stories that vets were telling.
Yeah, and actually all year long I've been really missing our kitty, and I had said to Nick, maybe we can get a kitty. I saw somebody with a kitty. I heard about this shelter with kitties, and now I'm like, I'm so glad we don't have a kitty right now, because that would have been really hard to worry about. So anyway, I think like Greece, they repatriated a whole bunch of animals with their citizens. Okay. So that was cool. But there weren't a lot of airlines doing things like that. So that was a big reason people chose not to leave.
Mm-hmm. So we're in the airport. The airplane loads, and we're good.
Yeah.
At what point did you feel comfortable on the flight?
Oh, gosh. Not until, because you're watching the radar thing, not until we were like in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like trying not to watch it so much, but really you can't help it. And and it takes longer to get there because you had to go this circuitous route because of airspace and danger. Because normally these flights go right over Iran.
Well, I mean, this one was to Manchester, so it's a little different than when we're going to Seattle.
That's true.
Seattle's the one that goes right over Iran.
That's right.
This one, the original route is straight over the Persian Gulf.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been
Same problem.
Between where all the rockets are going. So it was like, please tell me we're not going that way.
Yeah.
And I was it felt a lot better when we immediately turned inland and went over Saudi Arabia.
But even there, because Saudi Arabia's been hit too, you were like, okay, it just need to be in Europe. I need to be past the Middle East. And which is such a weird feeling because normally you feel so safe in Dubai. It's like we've talked about that plenty of times. Like I can walk by myself at night and not worry about it. And I mean, I still worry about it because it's like 50 years of worrying about it. But technically, I don't have to. So anyway, it was a long day and long week. But we eventually did make it to Manchester.
Yes, and so. Why was it such a big deal that Manchester turned out to be the best possible destination for us.
Yeah, it was so funny because we got that flight to Manchester, and then our friend who is a teacher at our school, and who takes care of T now and then, and we just adore her. She's a great person. I go on like regular walks with her, and I've met her mom who came to visit. Her mom had offered to let us stay with them in the Lake District.
Yes.
And Manchester is the airport to take you to the Lake District.
Yes, so the Lake District is just north of Manchester.
Yeah.
There in the UK.
Yep. So you hop on a train and you go up to the Lake District. And our friend told us what to do, and then it was so sweet. She arranged her whole family to help take care of us.
So it's about 2 hours on train.
2 hours on train, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we did take the train to Penrith. And then while we were waiting to get on the train, this woman, this older woman who was there waiting for...
She's come back from vacation.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Thank you. She saw that we didn't really know where to go, what platform, where are we going, and she helped us. She's like, I think you might be going to the same station as me because I heard you talking. Yeah. And so she was helping us, and then T loved her, and she was great. So we really liked her. And then when we got there, our friend's dad picked us up, and before we saw him, her husband came and got her, and we were chatting. So we arrived in the UK feeling immediately welcome. Like, people from the UK are so nice. Yeah. And they are. Usually that's always how I experience it. Zach Moves Abroad always talks about the nice people in the UK, and I agree. So anyway, we took the train to Penrith. Our friend's dad picked us up.
For about an hour drive out to where the house was.
Which I can't even remember the name of the town. It's like a tiny village. But it was very sweet and up in the hills. The weather was crazy different than Dubai.
I mean, it felt like going back to Seattle.
Yep.
I mean, it was gray and drizzly. Although, we missed a lot of the rain while we were there.
We missed... That's true. You mean in Seattle?
No.
Yes, that's true. We got a lot of the gray.
Yeah, and a lot of the wind and a lot of the chill.
And we got some like drizzle, but really nothing crazy. In fact, on a day it rained a ton at home. We were somewhere else. And it wasn't that far away, but it just wasn't raining like that. Anyway, so our friend's mom took such good care of us, and her brother also lives there right now. And yeah, it was great. Yeah, we'll talk more about that on another episode.
Yeah.
Well, but overall, how did it feel being in a different environment after we got there?
Well, I mean, the main thing was just the relief.
Yeah.
That you didn't feel like you were no longer in the war zone.
Yeah.
And I know that in Dubai, it wasn't the most dangerous of war zones.
Not even close.
I mean,
we don't want to compare it to like an actual war zone.
But I mean, you've got missiles flying overhead. You've got interceptions happening right above you. You're hearing the explosions. That was a real challenge. I mean, that was never anything that we thought we were going to be experiencing when we were on this particular journey. And, that was far different than anything we had ever experienced before. And it was challenging dealing with that. And, being able to get to somewhere where you knew that wasn't going to be the same sort of case, it felt very relieving to be in a place where you didn't have to worry about your phone going off for alerts or hearing the explosions overhead.
It really does give you perspective, though. But like, we have grown up in mainland U.S. and we've never been subjected to stuff like that. We've been subjected to a lot of other things, school shootings being my least favorite thing of all time. And we think about that a lot. And that's honestly one of the reasons we are not in the U.S. right now. But this was something you kind of take for granted as a U.S. citizen because we're separate from a lot of the world with this stuff. So we've just never had to deal with it in the same way that most of Europe has had to, and and of course the Middle East has had issues with over the years. So it really gives you perspective on what people have gone through. I think about all the people in the countries dealing with this regularly, and it's like we aren't at nearly close to those levels,
And I gotta say, if we're back in the States and we ever get like an amber alert or a silver alert, I'm never gonna react the same ever again.
Never.
It's going to be much more startling.
Never.
Forever from this point on.
Yeah, and we were talking about how we always read those amber and silver alerts, and if we're driving around, we try to scan license plates and so forth. And it's always hard because you're like, wait, what was the color of that car? You're trying to get back to that alert. This is a whole different thing. You're like obsessively looking at it, waiting for the next alert. One thing with an amber and silver alert I think would be nice is if they did send another one saying, located. I think going through this and going, oh, now we got that. It's okay. I'd love to see that for the amber and silvers too. I mean, or if they do locate them, of course.
So how did you feel about leaving Dubai?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I felt this combination of relief and guilt and sadness. And uncertainty, but also like gratitude. Like, get me out, please. I need to be somewhere else so I can think better and so that I'm not waking up with anxiety. Because I don't live in an anxiety place at this point in my life. I have my moments, but this was like a constant. But I also had a lot of guilt leaving. I knew how many people were staying and how many people couldn't leave or didn't want to leave. And I felt like we'd been taken care of really well in the UAE. And I was like, it's not that we don't think you're doing that. I'm sorry, So it was almost like this kind of tender feeling towards this home that you've had for the last several months. I think we talked about that a little bit. Like, gosh, I feel a lot of tenderness towards the UAE right now, especially because they did not ask to be in this situation. And also just relief. And also we love the UK. So I was like happy to be somewhere like that. I know my friend's mom, so I was happy to be somewhere warm and cozy. It was warm and cozy. Just like this big combo. But then the biggest thing that I would say I struggled with and over the last few weeks was like just missing our community in Dubai. Like we'd been working at it, right, to create it, and we finally were getting there. Like we really had some people that we felt like these are turning into some really good people for us and for our kid, and so I, some of the guilt is leaving that people are your work people, and some of it was just like feeling sad, like when will we see you again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I felt some profound sadness at leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to go. I mean, beyond the obvious of, okay, we got to get to some place where we're going to feel safe, where we're going to feel our child is safe.
Yeah.
But, it was very sad.
Yeah.
I mean, we're sad what's happening back there. We're sad about everything that's happening in the region and continues to be happening in the region. Feel bad for people who are still there, whether they feel like they want to leave or not.
Yeah.
Feel bad about the people who were kind of left behind.
We have friends and relatives that are highly, highly impacted by what's going on in Iran and in Beirut in particular. And this is devastating for everyone.
And I think that I think I'm being, speaking for both of us when I say that we really want to go back.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we want to go back to Dubai. We want to continue our experience that we were having.
Yeah.
We
want to keep growing that community.
We were enjoying our time there and really having that grand adventure that we set out to have.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, things are really starting to fall into place in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it was really sad to see all of that sort of, put off track. Now, that doesn't mean it can't get back on track again, and we are very much, hoping and praying every day that this whole conflict can find some sort of resolution, and not just us, but everybody can kind of start piecing their lives back together in the way that they were hoping they would be.
Yeah, I mean, across the whole region, like, it's just not nice. So many people are just stuck in it. They're stuck, and especially the ones that are in really, like, a war zone. You just are feeling so much for them, and yeah, we'd like to go back to Dubai. We'd like everybody to go back to their lives and feel safe and comfortable and excited, because I think that's kind of where we were, like, safe, comfortable, and excited.
Yeah.
Not always comfortable because, it's still not been even a year. But, so we're hoping and praying every day for this to be resolved, and we're also worried.
Yeah, and we also know that, again, I mean, we're very grateful for our situation, for our circumstances, that we were able to find a pretty soft landing.
Yeah.
Which, again, like Chelsea was saying, we will go into more details about all of that in future episodes.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about being in a different environment is, I brought a puffer, and I brought like a thin puffer jacket, and I brought my raincoat. So I was good. I didn't have like my normal like hoodies for the inside, and of course it's cooler. It's cooler up in the UK, and our host gave me one of her fleeces, and she was like, you can take that home with you. So you can take that on with you. So I've been wearing it every day. I love it so much. And it's also a hoodie. So I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, it was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to buy a hat.
But it's warmer here in Spain.
Yeah.
And we are doing our best right now to learn about and enjoy some Spanish living for a little bit.
Yeah, we're in the province of Malaga. We've talked a little bit about that on Instagram, and I post photos now and then so you can see little bits of it. But we'll do more later.
Yeah, so we've got UK, we've got Germany,
Yep.
we've got Spain. All of these things, we weren't planning on having any of these, but now we do.
Lucky us.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, we're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to kind of continue our journey and adventures despite the circumstances, I mean, that's a blessing.
Yeah, and I will say we just finished week 1 post spring break of distance learning. It was rough for you in particular.
Well, especially because we're 3 time zones away right now.
Yeah, but it'll be only 2 time zones next week.
Yes, after they have
their
daylight savings time
yeah.
here in Spain.
Yeah, and I think most of Europe, right?
Yeah.
And it was okay for me. Like I was able to do my work for the most part. For me, it's do students show up for the meetings that they're scheduled? But sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's nice to be doing things that have a purpose, and I like working, so I'm happy to do it. When I like meeting with my team. So we're doing those things and feeling a little bit normal. We don't have community in Spain. We don't know how long we're going to be here. So we're like, do we build it? Do we not build it? We don't know yet.
Yeah. A lot of questions still to be answered. But we're trying to do our best, taking it day by day.
Yeah. And if anybody's wondering, we only have like 2 months max in Europe before we use up our 90 days that are allowed. So we're definitely not staying.
Yeah.
Longer than that.
Yeah, so if anybody's got an idea of where we can go in June.
Hopefully we're back in school. Hopefully it's safe by then.
In case of emergency, feel
Hit
free
us
to
up.
reach out.
Yep.
As always, you can find us on our Instagram page.
Yep.
Nick Chelsea Gen Excellent Adventure.
Yep. You can leave us comments or questions there. We'd love to hear from you. We love it when you pass on our podcast or share things that we're doing with other people. In the meantime.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, be excellent to each other.
Have a great week, everyone.